Good afternoon, everyone, on this Thursday afternoon. This is the official The American Gentleman's Podcast with your host, Ben Martin. My other two friends today, Christian Myers and Edgar, will not be here today. I'm doing a solo podcast today. It's more of an emergency podcast. We have some things to discuss today, but moving forward, I'm going to try to put out one podcast a week, shooting for the end of the week, so I can get a good grasp of what's going on this week in news and sports and just everything that we're going to be covering today as well. If you're a Sixers fan, today's a great day. We got James Harden. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, as well as NBA player transactions today, trades that happened during the trade deadline. But I'm very excited as a Sixers fan today because we finally get rid of Ben Simmons. He's garbage, trash, and he's a bum. I got no time for that. Here in Philadelphia, we work hard. We don't leave and go home with our ball in our hand and not show back up. We put our hand down to the grindstone and we keep working. He clearly did not want to do that, and because of that, he got out. And we'll get into that a little bit more. In some pressing news, this past Monday, if you haven't been aware, we are now in some legislation for legalization of marijuana recreationally in PA. I know, everybody's a little bit scared about weed still. It's 2022 and we're acting like it's from another freaking dimension. CBD's already been legalized here in PA. They just moved I think the age limit now for tobacco use across the board to 21 years of age and older. So they're starting to move in direction to start to make almost everything, obviously safe drugs, not meth and all that stuff, but weed across the board legal. Let's get into that. On Monday, the Senate Law and Justice Committee heard proposed arguments for legalization of weed. Chairman Mike Reagan, he's a Republican from Cumberland Valley. He in his reps invited other reps from law enforcement to speak, as well as advocates from programs to speak on the hearings of passing legislation, of weed. So we have advocates from groups that are opposed to it, for it, just all across the board. This is they have three total meetings. They've already had one. This is the second one as of Monday the 7th. And a quote from Mike Reagan, he said, "We have some expert panelists that will be testifying, and I'm looking forward to hearing," Mr. Reagan said. "It's not going to be all one-sided. It's going to be based on their broad experience in law enforcement on the federal, state, local levels." So as you can tell, just right off the bat from the committee and the chairman, this is a very serious issue to them. And the fact that we're moving in this direction means that some people's views are starting to soften a little bit. I know living out here where I live, a lot of people are opposed to medical marijuana and all this and that, but, there's nothing you really can do. You can fight it as much as you want, but there's really nothing you can do. And I know people are, upset for whatever, but those people are still stuck in their ways from the 50s, and they still have not understood that, the world is moving in this direction, and it's either you move with it or you get run over by it. And I'm not saying give up your values and your morals for it, but, to sit here and stand in the way and be opposed to something that's going to be legal, like, for heaven's sake, New York and New Jersey have made it legal, and we're the state that's in the middle of two of those, and we're going to be the one that's just the odd people out. It's just not, there's, depending on your views, religious views, I'm a Christian, but I'm more of a newer, modern Christian. I'm not the Christian of the 1950s where, weed's bad. If you say one word, you're going to hell type of person. I'm a little bit more understanding than most people. But with that, it's going to come backlash. It's been said the committee expects to hold at least 2 more hearings to hear from regulators and operators from some of the 18 states that have legalized recreational cannabis, as well as advocacy groups on either side of the issue, Mr. Reagan said earlier this week. So as we can tell here, we have multiple states, 18 as it says, that have already legalized it, coming to PA to sit here and discuss the benefits, the issues with it, tax revenue, stuff that, needs to be all held in account when it comes to making this legal. People will get this news late, and then they'll hear after the 2 hearings that, oh crap, weed's legal. How could they do this to us? I'm giving you the information now so you can brace now so you don't get all flustered and all this other stuff. It's a different world that we live in. We live in a world where if you say one word, you get canceled. We live in a world where you can't really do anything. And we also live in a world where drugs that were illegal at one point are now legal. You can't be the world's going to move on. It's best for everybody to, take information the best they can and research themselves. But at some point, you're going to have to understand your views are your views, but you can also change as a human being as well. Mr. Reagan also paired alongside of Democratic Rep. Eamon Brown to draft legislation to end the prohibition of recreational marijuana. He's based out of Philadelphia, by the way, if you're wondering. The hearings were intended to help identify the best practices to incorporate it into their bill. Mr. Reagan stated that some places like Michigan and others have legalized and then had to go back and fix things. He's speaking about their bills that they made to legalize recreational use. Mr. Reagan said he wants to get it right the first time, so we're really taking our time to make sure we have a really good, solid product because it won't be taken seriously if it's not a good product. And Mr. Brown, the Democratic rep, stated, "We are beyond past due for legalizing marijuana here in Pennsylvania." I agree with both of those statements. It makes no sense to be a state that refuses to pass stuff that everybody else is passing because we just want to be different. If you have no factual evidence or, you want to use criminalities or felony charges of possession, you legalizing takes those violent offenders that were arrested on marijuana possession, and they're not criminals anymore. So I also understand why we need to legalize it. I mean, at the end of the day, I studied criminal justice in college. I have a degree in that. So I know that also not every situation that plays out with weed is just weed by itself. There's guns, there's violence, there's girls, there's trafficking. Keep going down the list of things. It's not every case, but nonetheless, those are things that you have to take into account. When we sit here and say we're long overdue, it takes 2 to tango. We have Democrats and Republicans for a reason. As we'll find out later in this article from the Post-Gazette, if you're wondering where I'm getting my sources from, the Post-Gazette, you can just look it up on Google. It'll be like one of the first things, one of the top stories. Republicans are softening their stance on this as well. And, with that means that obviously the view of Republicans in 2022 have shifted completely from where it was in the 1950s and 60s and on from there. And I think that's something you need to take account if you're looking at this in the big picture, because that means people are changing. You can sit in your ways and continue to be upset, mad, disgusted. But if Republicans are talking about this in a good way, that means we're moving in the right direction to legalization. Mr. Brown, the Democratic rep, also stated with legalization comes righting wrongs and expunging records. Like I said earlier, for those with nonviolent drug offenses, Mr. Brown said. So what he's basically saying is what I alluded to earlier. There's people that are just put in prison for 18 to 20 years, almost their life, for possession. So if these offenders, quote unquote offenders, if this becomes legal, they're not offenders anymore, happen to be offenders with felonies after the legalization, they have to figure out the right way to right the wrongs and expunging the records of those people, rightfully so. Mr. Brown also stated it also means that we work with law enforcement to ensure that we are not in conflict or on opposite sides as we work toward legalization. We can and should work together. In fact, it's safe for both police and community when we work in tandem. I agree. Police relations is something that we studied in college a lot. And typically in the black community, police relations is non-existent. Or if it is, it's just stay in the house and they're bad, or only white people get the benefit of the doubt with cops. I can tell you that's a lie as a black person. When I was doing stuff in high school, most of the people that saved my life were cops. You know, I don't disclose people's names in our podcast unless they wanted to, but if there's a person that's listening that knows who they are, they know that we did a lot of partying and stuff back in the day, and cops literally were sitting 2 feet away from us and did nothing. They could have arrested me being black, but they didn't. So police relations as it relates to the legalization of marijuana, the last thing I want as a black person is for black people to be stuck up about it. So it's like, oh, what are you going to do now? Can't arrest us because it's legal. Just go mind your business and be on your way. You know, don't put it in their face and do this and that, you know, because then that's the reason why they don't want to make this legal. You got to know how to act correctly when you're on this. You have a responsibility. Just like somebody who smokes tobacco and they don't want to smoke it in the gazebo that says for tobacco use only and do it around kids, they're irresponsible. You have a duty to yourself and others when you decide to partake in things, to not only hold yourself to a high standard, but others as well. And if you don't want to do that, then you have to suffer consequences. So the last thing I want is for black people, how fitting of me to make this video, you know, in Black History Month, to sit here and abuse that right of it being legal and being stuck up about it, because police relations can save you or it can hurt you. So if you sit here and don't understand how to know when to smoke and when not to smoke and just do it because you feel like it, there's going to be backlash if they legalize it and you decide this is just what I want to do and there's nothing nobody can do about it. I don't really agree with that attitude. That's what kind of gets you in trouble. So that's just a point that I think needs to be heard and brought up, because most people are never going to expect a black person to say something like that. You know, I look at it both ways. You know, with a degree, I can't sit here and be like, now I'm in charge. I have power. I have a responsibility with my degree to sit here and look at these legalization documents and stuff and talk about it from both sides of the spectrum. That's what my duty is. Just like we all have responsibility, that's my responsibility. If you're wondering what our governor thinks, however, with all of this, Governor Tom Wolf favors legalizing adult use marijuana, and the hearings will move the issue forward, said his spokesperson, Beth Rementer. So she commented on his behalf, which I don't like. I mean, if you're going to sit here and say you're all for it, then come out and stand on it. I don't want to hear your spokesperson say that. If you're open to it, then you need to come out and tell us. I don't want to hear what your spokesperson said. That's not, I don't agree with that type of interaction. She also continued to state he is committed to continuing an expedited review of pardons for nonviolent marijuana-related offenses until the legislature commits to giving Pennsylvanians what they want and giving this Commonwealth the economic benefits we know will result from legalization. So, in totality, this means he is now, even without the legislation, looking into pardoning and expunging records for people that are nonviolent users with marijuana, meaning no added assaults and batteries and this and that. So he's already looking into that. but they also want to look at the economic benefits as well, meaning what are we going to get from the tax revenue? So if we tax it at, whatever percent, just throw percents out, 3, 4, 5%, what is our return of investment of giving this? Because obviously you know how legislation works. The politicians at the top are not going to sign anything unless they can get a return on investment. So obviously with this, you're going to get a big investment of cash. So that's what he's looking into when he has to look at this legislation bill later down the line. There are signs of progress, though, and Mr. Reagan stated more and more Republican colleagues are privately coming around to the idea, although he declined to provide names. Plus, some prosecutors are now publicly saying legalizing marijuana could reduce violent crimes. I'm actually disappointed in that first sentence that his Republican colleagues are privately coming to them, because that still means we have a long way to go in this party of the conservative party. And if you're wondering, yes, I'm a conservative and I stand on that 100%. He is saying that his colleagues can't even openly talk about this, meaning that we still have this stigma that there's a way that you need to talk and the way that you need to say things and the things that you need to back up in these in your party. And I'm just not with that. Sure, there's fundamental values that conservatives, Democrats, whatever you are on whatever aisle, middle, centrist, whatever, that you follow. But the fact that some of these individuals that are spokespeople, representatives of us, of the people, feel like they can't even say or use their voice, but they can say it privately, says that we're not where we need to be politically. And I don't ever want anybody to feel like they can't say anything. That's why I have this podcast, for interaction, for people to talk, so we can all, get a better understanding of each other. And the fact that our own Congress people go through the same thing, that they feel like they can't even say stuff outright because there's going to be people coming around saying this and that, and, they could lose their job. That's not okay. That's no different than what we have to, that we as the citizens have to go through now. And it's just not something I support at all. To add to this, the Warren County District Attorney, Robert Green, has told police officers in his county that the only marijuana-related DUIs he'll prosecute are ones in which drivers show outward signs of impairment. And yes, I've smoked weed before. Everybody who knows, somebody that smoked weed, or you smoked weed yourself, the signs. Your eyes are red, you're stumbling, you're giggling, laughing, the whole thing. This is in favor for legalization. So before the legalization, it already proves that we're already taking a softened stance, in PA at least, how we're going to prosecute people that have been smoking weed and driving, and they have a DUI, driving under the influence. If you don't know legally what that means, that means that if you get caught in Warren County, at least, that if you're going to get prosecuted, if you don't show any signs or visual impairment, you're not going to get charged. You're not going to get charged at all with that. And that shows you that we're open to now, softening up the legal or the prosecution status of people who have weed, which is, if you're going to sit there and make that, and stand on that as a DA, a district attorney, that means you're throwing out a bunch of cases a year of people, just regular kids in high school, regular kids in college, the 24-year-old adult, the 25-year-old adult who's just smoking to smoke, and they just driving, but they fine. That shows you right there that we're already pretty much almost there. Not completely, but if we're just expunging and not expunging records and, not prosecuting, what's the point of having it illegal? I think most of the backlash, when you think about this, comes from mothers. It's not really dads. It's not really the kids. It's the moms. And moms have every right to fear, but this is the issue with moms of today. You fear, you fear, you fear, and you hold your kids back, and then they go to college and do it anyway. And then they sit there 20 years down the line and tell you they did these things, and look how good they turned out, or, you know, or whatever the story is. It's like at some point, we have to sit here and let kids go through things. Sure, I'm not telling your kids just to go in there and freaking get high and get destroyed, but I'm sitting here saying, you sitting here putting the clamps on them like Matisse Thybulle or freaking Gary Payton at the perimeter, sitting here saying, I'm not letting you do anything that you want to do and this and that, you're just going to ultimately push your kid into doing it. I would know that firsthand. I have siblings that have felony records. I have people in my family that continuously do drugs. And, you know, there's no repercussions of it. So I know how it is. But the fear aspect has to stop. I just proved to you in literally less than, you know, under an hour that people that are Republicans and conservatives that are formally opposed to this are sitting here going, yeah, well, I think it's time we need to legalize it. And it's starting to get to this point that, you know, we can keep fearing and keep fearing and keep fearing, you know, but at what point do we sit here and go, well, enough is enough? Fear is going to hold us back. Why? We don't have time for this no more. You know, it's a problem, and I think that fear is what drives, you know, I can't say on YouTube, obviously the vaccinations and the things that are going on, the C word, if you know what I'm saying, we have a lot of fear. You know, and the fear of what? The fear of death, the fear of the unknown, the fear of everything. Like, everybody's feared something in their life. I have included. But at some point, you got to get over your fears. And the issue that I keep running into with people that I talk to is that a lot of people think that if you just legalize this, that means people are just going to wake up tomorrow, go outside and start running around naked smoking. But, like, last time I checked, I know parents that literally leave their alcohol around their house and their kids get into it. So how are you any different than somebody who's smoking weed? You're not. You get visually, you know, impaired and screwed up in the head when you smoke, or, you know, smoke tobacco, or you know, drink, but yet you're so opposed to marijuana. I'm not sitting here saying, like, I'm not trying to make somebody feel bad, but it's like, they're all drugs. Tobacco's a drug, the nicotine's a drug, alcohol's a drug, your prescriptions that you take are drugs, you know. Everything that we take is drugs, almost in this country, just in different moderations. If you take more, well, what happens when you take more prescriptions than what you're supposed to? You OD and die. If you take too much alcohol, you OD and die. Like, if you take too much nicotine, you could literally die. So it's like, we're sitting here arguing one drug for another. There's no trade-off. This ain't no 3-team trade. I'll trade you tobacco for Ben Simmons and alcohol. No, every drug is a drug. And to sit here and say we're going to sit here and classify one a class X, and we're going to, you know, consider alcohol to be great, what would you rather have? Us have adults be able to use it, 21 years of age and older? That's the key word, adults. Not kids, adults, who can make grown-up decisions, who can drive, who can vote, some shouldn't because they don't know who they're voting for, go to strip clubs, transport alcohol in the back of a car. I don't care what you do at 21. As long as you're not going to be a danger to me on the road or any kids or yourself in public, and you can do this in a moderate way, I have no problem with it. And if you somehow still don't agree with that, I don't know what else to tell you. I would really like somebody to explain it to me other than that. But I don't know what else to say to you. Even to prove the point a little bit more, we have polls showing an overwhelming majority of Pennsylvanians and Americans favor legalization. As of an October survey from Franklin and Marshall, and if you live out here in Lancaster County, that's really close to us. So if you know anything about people going there, it's not that far away. In October, a survey from Franklin and Marshall College found that 60% of Pennsylvania voters back adult use of legalization of marijuana. That's the highest level of support since the firm started polling people about this since 2006. So to finish this off, you know, we have literally 60% of people who are Republicans, they also know that these are Republicans. So you have now crossed over a threshold where you have the majority of the Republican Party stating that they want the legalization of marijuana. And then the 40% want to say that, no, we're not doing it. I don't mean to be rude and disrespectful, but anything over 50% is the majority, except when it came to the 2021 election. We all know better than that. Come on now. This is a telling poll, because if you're telling me the majority of the party is sitting here saying that we need this, then what's the holdup? You know, this is why they have hearings. They got 2 hearings left. I'm pretty sure. I think one's next Monday and the Monday after that, or I could be mistaken. I'll, keep you posted on that. But, this is something that we need to really think about moving forward. Let me know in the comments below what you think. You can, throw whatever you want down in the comments about stories, anything. Just let me know what you think. I think it was a very good article. Like I said, it's on the Post-Gazette. Just type in marijuana legalization. It shows up on the Post-Gazette. And, that's really it for this. Legalization of marijuana is always being talked about, but this one hits home. It's literally not that far away from us. We got people in our own counties supporting it that I had no idea about. So that's why it was very, very important to cover this topic. Moving on to the next topic, Joe Rogan and Spotify. So I know a lot of people know who Joe Rogan is. I love Joe Rogan. Yes, I know he used the N-word. I watched the episodes where he did. I love it. I love every second of it. He's amazing. Joe Rogan's amazing. I'm not canceling him. He's great. I'm black. I don't give a crap. Stop it. You're all stupid. Shut your mouth. Get out. Get over it. Oh, he said the noise. He gets a... shut up. I don't care about the noise. Joe Rogan makes me laugh. That's all that matters. I don't have a problem with it. You guys need to calm the down. But anyway, we have the Spotify deal that we need to go over with Joe Rogan. And this is a deeper issue with censorship. This is not directly about Joe Rogan. This is more about censorship. So to give you some context and a timeline of the Joe Rogan issues, let me just go down real quick through the timeline of Joe Rogan and Spotify. So we got on May 19th in 2020, Joe reached a $100 million deal with Spotify to host his podcast. That's called the Joe Rogan Experience for those who haven't watched it. In September of 2020, same year, Spotify employees threatened to strike after the CEO, Daniel Ek, or Eck, however you want to say it, defended Joe keeping transphobic episodes of his podcast on Spotify. In a quote from this, in a little piece, the specific episode of the Joe Rogan Experience Eck was referring to was from July, in which Rogan interviewed Abigail Shrier, author of the book Irreversible Damage, the transgender craze, seducing our daughters according to one of the sources. That's the book name that he was looking at on his podcast. From the opening moments of that podcast, Shrier associates transgender youth with those with autism. Shrier and Rogan spend parts of the episode explaining that young people are being pressured into transitioning by YouTube and other media. That was the episode that Joe got all that flack from. And I don't really agree with the flack. I mean, he brings diverse people on his podcast to talk every day of the week. So, I mean, you're going to have people on there that are going to push their books and their authored books and magazines and covers and all this and that. So you can't really get mad at him. It's the people, because either you're going to hear it on his podcast or you're going to hear it on somebody else's. You don't get to sit here and be mad at Joe. It's going to be on somebody else's. So what are you going to do? Let's just say, for instance, I brought that same person on my podcast. What are you going to turn around and be mad at Joe? Like, you can't. It's going to happen one way or another. This is what I was talking about with the weed debate. People are going to say stuff that you don't like. You don't get the right to sit here and say my feelings are hurt, because they're not. If you have a problem with something, talk about it. Don't make somebody quit their job. Enough of that. You know, following that September, in April of 2021, Rogan received backlash after speaking about the vaccines. I'm not going to, I can't really say the words. I'm going to get canceled for that. The vaccines, saying young people shouldn't get vaccinated. I'm not vaxxed, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not really opposed to people getting vaxxed, but I'm not getting it. If you're young and you can sit here and, keep yourself healthy, take your vitamins, do what you got to do, exercise, don't, compromise your immune system from, eating bad foods and doing a bunch of other stuff and staying away from people and monitoring who you're with, I think you're good. But I don't want to sit here and give false stuff. So, don't listen to me. I'm just saying, go ask your doctor. Go ask people that actually know. Schedule a doctor appointment. Ask them. But I also agree young people shouldn't get vaxxed. I mean, unless you're literally the most, health-prone person, meaning compromised type of person, like all the types of things that you know who makes somebody health-prone, I would say take your chance. Okay? A lot of this is fear-driven from the media. Don't forget that. Following what Joe said, Spotify the same day also denounced dangerous vaccination content. They didn't directly sit there and not support Joe, but they also didn't sit here and help Joe either. They just simply blanket statements said, hey, if you all are going to put out stuff like this, we're denouncing all of that. In January of this year, the 24th, we all heard of this over the last couple weeks. Neil Young threatened to take his music off of Spotify because of Joe's opinions and his views. And because of that, Spotify pulled all of his music anyway. They basically backed Joe. So I'm very happy that somebody tried to get somebody canceled and it didn't work. And Joe, as I look at the news, actually is making a lot more people mad, but he's having a blast. So I'm not really that mad at him. And obviously the newer controversy that is of late, Joe, on February 3rd through the 5th, over these last couple days, old videos of Joe using the N-word came up and he made an apology. And Spotify removed 70 videos. Look, I don't care. But I don't care. I don't care. If you heard the amount of black people at my HBCU that use the N-word in front of white people, you would be flabbergasted. I don't care. You're not going to fool me with that. I don't care. Get the heck out of my face with this bullcrap. What I'm not going to tolerate is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Let's get to that. He showed support for Joe and over this controversy. And there's a tweet from him, if I can pull it up real quick. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson expressed solidarity with podcaster Joe Rogan, who is under fire from the left for contradicting the mainstream narrative of COVID-19. Dwayne also said, "Great stuff here, brother. Perfectly articulated." Johnson commented on Rogan's post, "Look forward to coming on there one day and breaking out the tequila." So he showed solidarity with him over being censored. Now, when somebody by the name of Don Winslow pointed out on Twitter, I'm not going to read his Twitter post because I really don't give a crap about that person, stated that to Dwayne, "Did you know that Joe used the N-word?" He comes back with a tweet talking about Dwayne, says, "Dear Dr. Winslow, thank you so much for this. I hear you as well as everyone here 100%. I was not aware of this N-word use prior to my comments, but now I have become educated to this complete narrative. His complete narrative. Learning moment for me. Mahalo, brother, and have a great and productive weekend." And he canceled him. So, being told about the N-word, now he just backed out of his his support for Joe because of the N-word. It's one of those things where I don't know if it's a Hollywood thing or if it's this or it's that, but I'm actually disappointed in Dwayne. I mean, he got censored, Joe got censored, and now you feel the need to sit there and go, oh, well, no, I can't. Nope, he said the N-word 70 episodes ago, but you showed solidarity, meaning you've watched his episodes. But now because somebody put out all the videos, now you feel the need to say, nah, I can't do it, bro. I'm not really with that. It's not like I don't care, but it's just one of those things that I'm just not okay with, where people want to show solidarity, and then after being told by somebody who's not even up on the totem pole like you, things that happen, now you sit there and now you want to cave and say, I'm not supporting you no more. I'm truly disappointed in Dwayne for that. I still support Joe Rogan. I think he's a great guy. I love Uncle Joey, Coco Diaz, you know, ISIS and everything. I love him. He's great. I hope they don't get rid of him. You know, it would be a shame, but they can't cancel Joe. He's too big of a YouTuber and a Spotify person and a personality, because he does UFC as well. They can't get rid of him. But on to our last topic today. Let's talk about the NBA. Everybody's favorite thing right now, right? Go China. Let's go Brandon. You know, but let's just talk about it. Let's just flat out talk about the trades that happen. Let's just give an update on the trades. So, of today, the 76ers got James Harden and Paul Millsap for Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. Sixers win the trade. We got James Harden. And they got Ben Simmons, of course. Space Cadet, I don't want to be here, Simmons. Look, we got James Harden. That's it. Let me know if you're happy with the James Harden trade or not. And the Magic today made some trades. They received draft consideration from the Celtics. They got P.J. Dozier, who nobody knows. And they got Manute Bul's son, and put him on their team. Cool. I really don't care. Yesterday, the Heat received draft consideration from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they received KZ Okpala from the Heat. The Trailblazers got Elijah Hughes from the Jazz. They also got Joe Ingles from the Jazz. They also got draft consideration as well from the Jazz as well. The San Antonio Spurs got Satoransky from the Trailblazers, point guard. They also got draft consideration from the Jazz. The Jazz got Nickeil Alexander-Walker from the Trailblazers, and as well as they got Juancho Hernangomez from the Jazz. Or they received him from the Spurs, The Jazz got Hernangomez from the Spurs. And this, the Portland Trailblazers have waived Cody Zeller. And those are really the big trades, as well as C.J. McCollum going to the Trailblazers. And, you know, that's really what we have so far. Sabonis as well got traded to the Pacers, from the Pacers to the Kings. Tyrese Halliburton, a big name, who got traded to the Pacers, which is a big trade. I didn't see that coming. And Buddy Hield as well. Some good shooting and good playmaking as well. If we go down and keep going and looking at these trades that happen, there's really nothing else that was big time. I mean, other than the Norm Powell trade from the Blazers to the Clippers and Robert Covington. So basically the Trailblazers have nobody left except Dame Dollar. That's about it. You know, Dame could have came to Philly, but he said no, and he wanted to stay loyal. He ended up with nobody on his team except himself. You know, sometimes you got to get out of your own way with loyalty and say, I got to do what's best for me. And Dame didn't want to do that. That's really everything. I don't think the trade deadline, let me see real quick, now it's over. The trade deadline is over now. But it's over. It's been over for about 30 minutes now. So we'll probably get more news in tomorrow, and I'll probably cover that next week. But yeah, that's a recap for the basketball trade deadline this week, and the Sixers got James Harden. That's all that really matters. This podcast has been great. It's been fun, but I'm signing off. And until the next time, I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.